made, you still get the attention from people. This also applies to shows as well. Like if you're someone who just entered the community and you make an average looking show, people won't even consider you as a creator. But if you made a show so bad, it will attract attention, even from some of the more well-known people. Or if you criticize a quite respected person for their shortcomings, some of the more well-known creators will start taking sides and take offense to what you said. Point 7. Merciless or unforgiving on people from past actions. Now, I don't want to unintentionally cause a hate bandwagon here, but without mentioning examples, this point wouldn't make sense. I think the most popular examples of this is with Scratch Cat, a former animator from BFB, and Lego Boy and J, the creator of Object Terror. So I think around December of 2018, Scratch was caught allegedly for sexually harassing a minor, which is frowned upon. I completely condemn that, no doubt about it. But like, it's been almost 2 years and I saw people still having beef with this person. Like, even on the wiki, people will say stuff like they want to punch this guy for even working on a children's show. And I'm like, okay, geez, that was a year ago. The guy had probably moved on, or at least issued an apology regarding the situation. You're basically just beating a dead horse here. Just stop it. I mean, it's fine to put him in a timeout corner or something like that, but don't close the doors for him. If he wants to come back as a better person, don't make him feel unwelcome. The same thing can be said for Lego. Personally, I don't really care what he does. You know, it's the internet. You can do whatever you want. And his case occurred way back before the Scratch one. And even like people are still bad-mouthing him. I was even in a server with him, and when he's offline, someone's gonna pop into the conversation and backbite him. And I said the same thing. You guys still hate Lego after all these years? Presumably like 3 years? And a lot of creators confirm that he's fired from their shows and whatnot. Just by looking at these situations, I'm like, wow, is this the type of acceptance that the people in the community have? You know, once you screwed up, that's it. You're gonna get cancelled forever. There's no second chance. No amount of sincere apology will be accepted, and you can't interact with people that you used to interact with. I thought the community is supposed to be welcoming to everyone, but I guess if your reputation has been ruined, you no longer have any seats left on the table. Point 8. Identity is more important than the justice that should be served. This is kind of related to point 7 with the case of Scratch sexually harassing a minor. Ever since that incident, you know, people started turning against him, trying to boycott him or cancel him. Basically, now he's an outcast and no one's considering him anymore, which is fine, I guess. People can disassociate however they want if they got into a fight with someone, but what's silly is that people are more concerned with this identity. Basically, people are afraid of others misgendering this person despite of the actions that he's done. Like, someone on the wiki just flat out said it, like, no matter how bad a person is, you should still respect their identity. And I'm like, what? This is what you're concerned with? If a robber broke into a bank and escaped, what you should be concerned with is the amount of money that's been robbed and from which people the money was stolen from, not what kind of pronouns that the robber used. Come on, this is another level of ridiculous. If you care for identity so much, then you're in the wrong community. This is the OSC, full of kids. If you're all about identity rights, that's fine, but don't distract people from the real problem. This is about someone sexually harassing a minor, and all you do is correcting people what kind of pronoun this person used? I mean, seriously? Point number 9 is debating over the object's genders. I think this whole trend started when I assumed Carrie and Michael didn't have any female voice actors for their show, so a bunch of female characters sound like boys, like Leafy, Pencil, and Golf Ball. And then when BFB started, Satomi expanded this trend by listing characters who sounded masculine to the girls list, like Lollipop, Pie, and Gady. I don't know if this is her or someone else, but someone said that Pie is a female because she's similar to Lumpy Space Princess from Adventure Time. And I'm like, what? She sounds nothing like Lumpy Space Princess, and that's the reason why Pie is a female? I know this shouldn't even be a big deal because the characters are objects and they shouldn't even have genders to begin with. Like, gender plays a very small role in object shows. I'm the kind of person who just goes with the flow, okay? And when someone assumed a character is a certain gender but it turns out they weren't, then I would just go along with it. But it's frustrating when people started debating over this topic. Like, even one person called me out for being sexist because I assume a character's gender based on their voice. And I'm like, that's just what the human nature is. It is part of the human psychology. Heck, I would be freaked out myself if my mom sounded like Leafy, or I wouldn't be able to handle dating a girl who sounds like Golf Ball. Even some of the more well-known members started acting like SJWs, like, women with deep voices exist. And I'm like, yeah, but they're not the majority. Normal females have beautiful high-pitched voices, and it's normal to assume someone based from such aspect. You might think I'm being hypocritical that I also included these things in my shows, but at least I give my female characters eyelashes to at least differentiate them, or I wouldn't lose my freaking mind if someone got it wrong. You know, the whole misgendering someone is an act of violence? Yeah, no, stop being such a snowflake. Point 10 is people who complain that BFDI shouldn't be marked as for kids because they're offended by how people are judging them of watching kids' cartoons. I don't think this point is as strong as the other ones since there's only one instance that I've encountered, but because the community is full of kids and they're impressionable, it's likely that they're going to develop the same mindset and as the one that I'm going to mention. What happened was people started freaking out when they found out BFB1 was struck by COPPA and was marked as for kids. And I'm like, wow, looks like I quit the OSA at the right moment. Maybe this is a blessing. And I was wondering, like, why are people so burned up about this? I assume it was because of the ad revenue, and I looked and thought the episode already has 10 million views. I'm pretty sure they've gained enough money. Plus, the video itself is 28 minutes. Surely there are a lot of ads slipped into the video, right? And then someone pointed out, no, it wasn't the ad revenue, it's the fact that if one video gets struck, then it's likely that the others will too. Then someone complained that YouTube shouldn't mark BFDI as for kids because he's angry that other people are judging him for watching children's cartoons. And he insists that BFDI is not a children's cartoon because Carrie said that BFDI is for children at heart. And I said, wow, you do take that statement for granted, do you? And he just flat out said it, yes. And I'm like, dude, what do you expect? Anyone who knows nothing about the OSC of course is going to assume that BFDI is for kids. They're not being judgmental, it's just the way it is. Why are you being so mad when being called watching a kids show just because Carrie said the whole children at heart thing? And now you're putting the weight on BFDI that it shouldn't be for kids because you're dealing with people who are judging you? The majority of BFDI's audience is kids and will always be kids because the show looks that way and you just have to deal with it. There are a ton of adults on YouTube whose job is reviewing kids' cartoons. Why are you being so upset when you're not a loner? You're taking other people's judgments too personally, and now you're connecting it with BFDI's target audience? Stop it. Just deal with those judgments. It doesn't devalue you as a person. You're just a teen who likes watching kids' cartoons. That's it. Point 11 is treating the popular shows or creators as holy or sacred. And I think this also goes for any other community, but since this one is full of kids, sometimes it can be very toxic, especially knowing the fact that kids can be defensive and they haven't learned the concept of what makes a good product. First, I want to mention an instance. This was kind of related to point 10 with the incident taking place in the H2N Central Discord server. Basically, someone was making a theory about whether or not golf ball is truly a golf ball because of a scene in IDFB. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a good theory. I don't think that's the case, but we'll find out if it's actually revealed. And this person started acting like a conspiracy theorist all of a sudden. Like, oh, you know, BFDI has a lot of things to reveal. We should really theorize this golf ball incident. And I'm like, okay, dude, chill. IDFB is like 10 minutes compared to the rest of 10 hours of footage. No need to get overboard. And the conversation suddenly started getting heated. Like, I'm saying to this person, don't take this stuff too seriously. And this is, after all, a kid's show. And then one person, out of nowhere, jumped into the conversation and was like,
overanalyzation, huh? I read a 100-page document analyzing Gelatin's character.
And I'm like, what? Why? You could be discovering a hobby that benefits society, or a hobby that at least raises your status among your family or your peers, and this is what you do for a living? And this person was like,
well, it's to appreciate Gelatin's character more.
And I'm like, dude, Gelatin is a fictional character. Why do you care so much? Even if Gelatin suddenly becomes a bad guy, it won't affect anyone in real life. You know, if you're a Christian, why don't you analyze the characters in the Bible, and then maybe teach people how to appreciate those characters more? Why spend so much time on a fictional character? And these two started becoming defensive, like,
oh, don't listen to this person. He doesn't respect people's hobbies.
And I'm like, dude, you can do whatever you want, but keep your conspiracy theories to yourself. Don't shove it down people's throats. Another instance is when BFB 14 got delayed because of problems and such, and ended up making a bunch of people flustered, like, why so many delays? And I said, you know, it's kind of their fault. They shouldn't give away release dates just in case things like this happen. And even the server owner of the Object Show community server started being all defensive, as if I was attacking Carrie and Michael, even though I was just criticizing them that they shouldn't put out release dates just in case things outside of their control happen. And then a bunch of people started being on this guy's side, like,
it's not their fault, they just had a cockroach infestation.
And I'm like, I'm not talking about the cockroach infestation. I'm talking about how they shouldn't put release dates because things like this could get in the way and delaying the episode. And like always, the conversation got really heated, and it took a while for a person to finally realize the point that I'm trying to convey. I know you idolize Carrie and Michael, but that doesn't mean they're immune to flaws or criticisms. People can still call them out, and you don't have any right to shield them like that. It makes you look like their slave. Point 12 is conservatives not welcome. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, I'm a conservative. I'm a Muslim. I don't really hide this identity at all. I fully embrace my religious identity. I posted faith-based artwork on various servers letting people know that I'm a Muslim, like an art of Eid Fitr and Eid Adha, and then a bunch of people started DMing me, admitting to me that, oh, I'm also a Muslim, didn't know that there are other Muslims too in the community, assalamualaikum akhi. And on the surface, it's very flattering because I also didn't know that there are other Muslims in the community, but it also gives the impression that these Muslims don't really feel confident in their religion. Like, they have the mindset of,
oh, religion is personal, you should just keep it to yourself.
And I don't mean to brag here, but I wonder if any of these Muslims will ever come out expressing their religious identity if I hadn't posted those pictures. It seems like they feel the community aren't very welcoming to religious people. Another reason to this point is because of a recent incident. I was in a conflict with someone who claims to be a Muslim, but he doesn't really show off the impression that he's a Muslim. You know, he swears everywhere, and I personally told him about all that stuff, and I told him specifically about making sexuality jokes, and he started being all defensive, and he tattletaled to a person who's acting all emotional confrontational. He's like,
Hey man, you should have just come to me to deal with this sort of stuff. I will not hesitate to disassociate myself from you. You're a terrible person. You're gaslighting people. Don't use religion to prevent people from whatever they want. You're a piece of crap.
and a whole bunch of other insults. Then he proceeds to cancel me, like he indirectly wanted other workers of my show to quit. Basically, he's being childish and being sensitive simply because I was religious. And I'm like, okay there, Mr. Therapist. Do you take your religion seriously? Do you read your scripture? Huh? If not, then you're probably not a good person. And I assume this person tattletale to another server owner that I'm in because I was suddenly kicked from there. I haven't really checked, but I don't really care at this point. In conclusion, if you're religious, you have no space or freedom in the community because all that politically correct stuff. Point 13 is prone to unnecessary arguments. I don't think this one deserves its own category because most of the other points also revolve around unnecessary arguments, like someone disagrees with something and then an opponent of that person who agrees will start acting all defensive about their stance and forces the other person to agree with them. Basically, they disagree to disagree. This is the kind of toxic problem in the community. Point 14 is criticisms in general. You might think I'm being hypocritical for even complaining about this since I used to be one of these people myself, but in my defense, I've changed as a person, and it's not like I don't like to take criticism, but I just don't like it when people